America, what we heard from the State of the Union tonight was unacceptable. The response left me feeling wanting. Where is the fire that liberty should make us all feel burning deep inside? That freedom and its power, the power that can free a people of tyranny if it is truly realized. The power that freedom gives any man to pull himself with his hands. I work with my hands. Out of whatever rut he's in. With the only requirement to his success being his own motivation and desire to achieve. We have a president who has never worked with his hands. He has spit words and palatable sentences to people that are willing to buy his lies. He's deceived his way into an office that he does not deserve. And when in that office, he has committed more reprehensible acts than Nixon or Clinton ever did. Yet, we hear the Republican response, and they hope that they can work with the traitor that is our current president, our dictator who decrees and mandates and changes laws without congressional approval from his office. And they want to work with this man. It drives a spike of rage through my mind to think that that was said really in our response. Not our response, I don't call myself part of the GOP anymore. I am for liberty. I am certainly no liberal or progressive. Oh no. But the party that I would have claimed years ago, I can no longer claim. All I claim to be is an American. And all I claim to want, and all I do want, is a healthy country. I have a YouTube channel, Twitter account, and I speak on politics. The only reason I started it is because I saw our country dying. I would rather live in silence with a healthy country, not have to sit here and tell you that something is wrong. But something is direly wrong. We see people targeted by the very agencies we're supposed to trust, to treat us fairly and be righteous in their actions because they're our government and they should treat us impartially. Instead, they target its citizens, this country's citizens, you and I. We're standing up for something we believe to be right. And the leaders of our party have traded some of our truth for lies in hopes to keep a little bit of our truth. I ask you, if you have a truth and you know that this principle is almighty and it is just, freedom and the equality that freedom gives, an opportunity, none result. You can't guarantee the same results to everybody because some men are willing to try as hard as others are. That's a fact. But the freedom of opportunity, the equality of opportunity that freedom gives is amazing. And we are watching it die in front of our eyes. And we see a group of people that was supposed to represent us that want to work in compromise with the enemy. Now, if that is a truth, that freedom, that equality of opportunity is a truth, you can't take and piecemeal it out and sell parts of it off to get a little bit of it, because then it's not truth anymore. Because you've compromised it. We need to stand for our principles and no more of this middle-of-the-road mediocrity. No more of this trying to make people happy. Because you know what? Not everybody's always going to be happy. But one thing that is always true is when something is right, you have to stand for it and not let it be compromised. If it is truly correct, why would you trade it for lies? And that's what the Republican Party and establishment GOP has done. They're willing to sell parts of our truth to keep little pieces of it. It's not truth anymore, then, is it? We need to all recognize the eternal vigilance our founders talked about in maintaining freedom. We screamed to the Capitol to defund Obamacare, to defund this, to defund that. Defund tyranny, we tweet and hashtag on Twitter. You have a responsibility to defund tyranny, to defund Obamacare. The government only governs with your consent, per the Declaration of Independence. It was required. But our whole country, or at least people in charge, seem to have forgotten that. And now police will take your car if you don't pay registration. Your right to travel is gone unless you paid and you're due for your driver's license yearly, or whenever it expires, however your state works. What do you think George Washington would have said if somebody with a badge pulled him over on his horse and asked him if he had his travel license and if that horse had been registered? I think Washington might not even got off the horse and have kicked the man in the face. He said, "How dare you? You thug, you tyrant, you scallywag." But now, these people who rule us do exactly that. They rule us. From a distant capital far away that we have delegated the responsibility that we're supposed to have for freedom, to we've delegated to that far and distant capital in another state, and a country away for some of us. In my case, it is a country away here in California. And in doing so, we have forgotten what it takes to maintain freedom. And the men we entrusted to maintain it have become poor stewards of it. What are you willing to do? You have to retract your consent when government is wrong because you have a duty. It is in the Declaration of Independence your duty and your right. When the government is tyrannical, when you have a president who thinks he can decree the law from the Oval Office without your elected representatives, which really don't do that much good anymore, they become a ruling class of elites that never leave that nice shiny white dome. They're career politicians. They don't work with their hands. I want to cry when I think about my country sometimes. But it is not what you need to see right now. That sadness of what America has become, what is happening to liberty. Turn that feeling into a well of rage, but righteous rage. And say, I do not have to take this. I am an American citizen, and I do not consent. I will not stand for this. We have a constitution. It is to be honored, and it is to be upheld as the standard of law that applies to all of the country, including the man at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and all the people down the street at the Capitol Dome. And to our Supreme Court justices, who seem to not have taken English class and can't comprehend the basic meaning that our founders implied in their documents that started this country. You, Mr. Roberts, cannot force a business to sell a product, whether you call it a tax or a fine or a penalty. And you cannot tell me to buy it either, or decree it legal that somebody does. This is so basic and fundamental. I wonder how lost we have become and why we have become so lost. How can we not see the obvious truth in front of our eyes? Well, maybe it's because we've traded that truth. And it's this piece of Swiss cheese now. It's not a whole thing anymore. You see through it, and those parts that we're seeing through it, those parts that we're missing. How do we get it back, though? Let's not be all sadness and despair. There is a way to get it back. But there are 200 plus years of infringement on the freedom of man on the books. And with the process and the rigmarole of Congress and its circumstance and all the different rules, you think it will be repealed? No, it will not. It's an obvious answer. But there is hope. But first, we have to consider that the government that our founders intended was a small government. This government was make it a building analogy. It was a two-story house, the foundation for a two-story house. And that's what our founding documents were meant to support and uphold and be able to control. But over the years, through our complacency and our delegating of our responsibility to maintain freedom to a foreign distant capital, these politicians who have served us poorly, we have built, on top of that small government plan and those documents that were made to support that small government, a 100-story skyscraper on that same foundational footprint and footings. We have put it beyond its capacity. Tell me what happens when you build 100 stories on top of a 2-story house's foundation. The foundation is crumbled, cracked, gone, and it has disintegrated. It is all but dust. We can't get it back, though. But it is not more laws. It is exactly the opposite. It is repouring it anew, starting from scratch, but not with something different, but with what we had. You see, our whole thinking is backwards. It is turned around. In this healthcare debate, we hear them say, we need to pass a law to let the insurance companies sell across state lines. Instead of asking, what is the law that said they couldn't in the first place? Why don't we get rid of that? Instead of passing another one, because you know they'll attach all kinds of little things we don't know about to it, and they'll have all these little payoffs and all these little like extra little things they put in there, the pork and the benefits, or these little weird rules that make bureaucracy grow. That's not what we need. We need these things to go away so freedom can come back. The hope for our country does not lay in 535 men and women in the capital. It lays in us. And we can have a republic again, but we must keep a more watchful eye if we do succeed in returning our republic to its original state. We must keep a more watchful eye on those politicians. Term limits, and a vigilant, continuing critique of what they do, and putting everything they try to do under a microscope constantly, so that they know we are aware. This means getting more involved in your children's lives, talking about politics at the dinner table, raising our families again to be families. Our country is at stake. We are at war. Not with another nation. There's no battle that is taking place. But this is a battle of ideas. And what is at stake right now is the greatest idea that has ever come into existence on the face of this earth, and that is the idea of freedom and liberty. I will leave you with this thought. Our founders, the men they read, to get the ideas that they used to create America, that took 2,000 years to build those ideas into what they used in the end. From 450 BC, before Christ was born, from Thales, the first Greek philosopher, that turned into the Greek city-states, into the Roman philosophers, and all those people, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, some wrong, some right, but all in that part of the necessary debate that led to the French Revolution and the Enlightenment philosophers, Voltaire, Rousseau, the social contract. Is man inherently good or evil? Is the society corrupt? All these things. They read Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes, they read Adam Smith, they read so much. I think that, if any one of those men had not contributed to the debate before they came to the creating of this country, it may not have been able to be what it was, because I think all those were such essential arguments that were had and made and were necessary to create America. And our founders, they knew they were right. They knew in their hearts that freedom is what man's intended state. JFK had a great line in one of his speeches. He said, man is meant to be free and independent. And our founders knew that. And they took a 1 in 3 shot to make this country. 1 in 3. And even then, only 3% of the country fought in the Revolutionary War. 3%. But only a third of the country in the beginning was behind them. A third of the country didn't care, and a third were for the British. They had 2/3 of the population against them or indifferent. And then that third that did support only 3% of the whole entire nation, or you could say, 1/33 of that third, or like 1/11 of that third, fought actually in the war. 1/11 of the third that the support of the country fought in the war. That was such a narrow shot in the dark they took, but they stood up for what was right because they knew it was correct and they knew man was meant to be free. And they were willing to pay whatever price achieving that required. His principles are timeless. The Constitution and the principles that it represents are our nation's principles, and they are timeless. They are not something to be interpreted different down the road by some rogue justice who thinks that he has a new idea or thinks he knows better than our founders. How arrogant are they, these men? Wake up. Please, America. I am not begging it of you, I am demanding it of you, because you have been given so much by this freedom that for you to not stand now is a slight against the very men who brought us into existence. And all the men between now and then have paid the ultimate price for its existence. Do not go quietly into that dark night. Do not give up without a fight. Do not let us be put into the ash heap of history without at least saying that we fought on our way down, trying to work with a dictator. Have heart. Your convictions will carry you, and we can win.